Oops, there we go. So we're in a new part. We're all going to do this together. And we're going to follow along with what I'm doing because it really will help you in the end. We're going to spend about a class or two going through a lot of different techniques and different functions in the program. And then, after those day or two class periods, I'll start allowing you guys to work on assignments that you do individually. So we're going to start together by pressing Start 2D Sketch up here on the left. You don't have to hit the drop down on here because if you do, it just gives you options of 2D and 3D. Since it's already on 2D, you can just click this button. Now, what happens, and notice what happens on my screen. If I don't click the button, and instead I just hover over it, it always gives me a little bit of instruction on how to use that feature. Very, very useful in this program. It works for every single icon. Hover over any icon along the top, and just let your mouse sit there for a moment, and it'll give you some more information about how to use that feature. Now, what it also says is press F1 for more help. Do you see that? That's going to happen for every single one of these icons. So if I wasn't sure how to use what's called the fillet command, I could simply hover over it. And once it's actually showing me this, I can then press F1 on my keyboard. And it'll open up a help window in either Chrome or Internet Explorer or one of the web browsers, and it'll give you far more information than what you're seeing in this very simple preview right here. Is that clear what I'm saying? So when it comes to actually learning stuff on your own, because I'm going to give you guys assignments where you're learning different commands by yourself, you're exploring them, it's really useful to get a little bit of help by hovering over it, reading what the command means, and then hitting F1 if you need to learn more. The second really important thing here, notice next to the word fillet, there's the letter F. That's called a hotkey. There are a lot of hotkeys in this program, which simply mean it's a keyboard shortcut. So right now, there's nothing to fillet because I don't have a solid. In order to do what's called fillet, it rounds over edges, I need to have already created a solid. So unfortunately, if I choose fillet right now, it's not going to do anything for me. So I can't really use that command. But if I go to Start 2D Sketch, let's see. So look at Start 2D Sketch. The hotkey is S. So instead of going up to there and clicking on it, what you'll notice is that if I'm here, take a look at my screen, please. If I'm right here, instead of going up to Start 2D Sketch, I can just press S. And when I press the letter S, it already automatically brings me into 2D Sketch. So the shortcuts on the keyboard could save you some time down the road. Now, you don't have to do it every time, but I'm giving you these ideas because if one day you are working with a CAD program, and you do this on a regular basis, or if it's in college and you're learning how to use it, optimizing your time helps. If you do it every day, then you would definitely get used to the shortcuts. Just like on a PC or even on a Mac, copy and paste, Control-C, Control-V. To cut is Control-X. To undo is Control-Z. Like those simple shortcuts, seemingly not important, I use all the time. And it saves me a ton of time on the computer. Like if I want to open Windows Explorer on my computer right now, I don't go down to the bottom and open stuff, I press Windows E. And by pressing Windows E, it'll bring up the Windows Explorer window here for me. And it'll bring up all the folders that I have on my computer. So shortcuts in general on computers are really important, and CAD itself also has shortcuts. Now, once I start a 2D sketch, my command is to select a plane to create a sketch. So for now, it doesn't matter, but if I hover over them, we can see that there are 3 different types of planes. And where are those planes coming from? Take a look down here in the corner. See the XYZ in the bottom left? The XYZ in the bottom left over here allows me to see which axis I'm working on. In your math courses, you are traditionally used to Y and X. Z is the depth dimension, right? So this is the Y-axis, this is the X-axis. Z-axis is coming out of the board or into the board. It's depth versus height and width. Okay, so I'm going to choose any of these 3. It does not matter. I'm going to start with the XY plane. And when I click on the XY plane, it looks like I see an XY axis. And that's on purpose. And if I look down here, look at my orientation. X is left and right, Y is up and down, and Z is this blue arrow, which you really can't see it because it's pointing out of the page. The arrow tip is pointing at you right now. Okay? If at any point in time you fall behind as I'm talking, one of 2 things. Turn to the person next to you and get caught up. Or simply raise your hand and let me know. The further you fall behind in the lesson, the harder it's going to be to keep up with what I'm doing. So if you're like a couple steps behind, I gotta know that so that I can come by and quickly help you so that we're all on the same page and you're not falling behind as we continue to go through. So when you're choosing a plane, you want to choose the perimeter of that plane. It's going to show like those three planar faces. You click on the edge of it. Now, what have we done so far? We've only created a sketch. We haven't actually sketched anything, but we've created a sketch. So everybody take a look over here. First, does anybody not have this on their screen right now? And that's okay if you don't. Okay, so go up to View at the top. There's a little ribbon at the top that says View. Then go to User Interface. So go to View, click on View, and click right. Okay, then click User Interface, and then Browser bar. For some reason, it doesn't load all the time. You don't have either?
No, I just have like a different view of all the tools.
Yeah, I don't know why that is. A couple of computers, they're like all hidden, so you have to hover over them and you'll see them. I don't know why that is. I gotta figure that out. Sorry about that. But for now, they're still there. They're just hidden. Okay. Okay. So you gotta click on one of the planes. So now you're on the ZX plane and you started. Right. Again, guys, use the mouse. Use the mouse. You gotta get used to using it. So even if you're not used to. The click, the normal click is this finger, by the way. So take a look, please. This is click. If I say click, you're using your index finger. If I say right click, because I know a lot of you have Macs at home, if I say right click, you're using the middle finger. So this is a right click. This is technically left click, but I'm never going to say left click. Because on a standard mouse, you click with this finger right here. So if I say right click, that's the only time you're going to use the other option. Sometimes you have to double click. I will say double click if you need to. Does that make sense? So you don't need to double click all the time. Sometimes if you double click on something that only requires one click, it'll open that same feature twice. Does that make sense? Because you're clicking it twice by double clicking. So I'll use phrases like click, double click, or right click. Those are the three phrases that I will use. Why are those funny, Jim? I gotta know. Why are they funny? It's just funny stuff? Okay. So anyway, yes, they seem standard, but depending upon what you grew up with, a Mac or a PC, it's different. Now, with that said, let's start. In last class, if you remember, I started going through some things you guys just watched. So if I hover over the feature for a line, I can see the command that comes up. And it tells me how a line works on this computer, on this program. It also shows me that L is the hotkey for line. Right? L is the hotkey for line here. So if I want to make a line, I'll start by clicking line, or I'll just press the letter L. I've already pressed the letter L, and take a look what happens on my screen. The button for line is now highlighted, which means I know I'm in the line feature. Now, this is why I'm saying listen, because these things are important. If I don't want to be in a feature, you have to press escape to get out of it. Look on your keyboard. Everybody look on your keyboard and press escape, and it'll turn off the line feature. So some people, and I've noticed this happens because I taught this course for I don't know how many years now, will be stuck in the line feature and like, I can't get a circle or it's not working, the other stuff. And it's because you have line clicked. So press escape and look at my screen. When I press escape, it turns the line feature off. When I press L, it turns the line feature back on. And my mouse now looks like a little bit of a crosshair. Notice that? Okay, notice also what happens here. What am I seeing? I'm seeing coordinate system. Just like I've seen coordinates in my math class. So if I were to click right now at this moment, the coordinate would be 0.244, comma, negative 0.239. This is my xy coordinate. Now if you chose the xz plane, it might say xz. If you chose the yz plane, it might say yz. Okay, so depending upon what plane you chose to work on. Now a couple things to look at. As I move around the screen, take a look at my command, or take a look at my, my cursor here. When I get close to a really important location, it'll turn green. Green are for like endpoints of lines, midpoints of lines, or in this case, the origin. Take a look what happens when I get to the origin. See how it turns green? And I want you guys to all do this. Take your mouse, move it away from the origin while the line feature is on. So line feature is on right now. Move your mouse away from the origin. Then move it toward the origin. When you get near the origin, it should almost like snap to it. It's called snap to, or O snap is actually what it's really called. orthogonal snapping. So it should kind of hover near that. Again, guys, please, it's fine if you ask questions today. I don't mind. Please ask questions because you've got to know how to do this kind of stuff. Okay.
Is there a command zoom?
Yeah, so zooming in and out is the scroll wheel in and out. The scroll wheel on the mouse, you know what a scroll wheel is? Anyone not know what I mean by scroll wheel? Okay, why is this funny, Spence? Because people should know it already?
I just feel like
Because we all know. It's okay.
All right. Well, on a Mac, you guys don't have a scroll wheel, right?
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah.
I thought Mac mouses were just a click. It was one click. It was all you had. Whatever. Anyway, it does not help you to zoom in right now. It does not help you because you don't have a shape. Once we create a shape and stuff, we'll zoom in and out and see it a bit better. So let's all do this together. Let's start by clicking at the origin, please. Let's start by clicking at the origin. Now, I can move away from the origin and take a look at my screen, and I'm not clicking. So I click the origin, I release the click. I'm not clicking and holding. If I want you to click and hold, I'll say click and hold. So I click at the origin, I release the click, I move away. Do not click again. Again, do not click again. So if I move at this moment, the line will move with the cursor. Take a look. If I move, I haven't set the line yet. This is just what it will look like if I were to click again. Here's what I want to talk about. First, you can arbitrarily click and you'll have a certain line there. But you can also type in the exact measurements you need. So for example, if I need a vector, think back to physics last year, if I need a vector that is 10 inches long at an angle of 35 degrees, it's going to be tough to make it work on here, to make it exact. Or let me say 2 inches long is the size of it. So 2 inches long at an angle of 32 degrees. I can do that by typing. And watch what I'm going to do, please. Start by typing the number 2. It's going to change my length to 2. This is the flashing cursor here. Now I want to change the angle. Instead of pressing enter, if you press enter right now, it'll set this to be 2 in length, and it'll choose that angle automatically. But if I want to make it something like another angle, press tab on your keyboard. It's right above the caps lock button. It should move you over to the angle now. I'll do it on mine. When I press tab, take a look at what happens. It defines the 2 that I already set, which makes the line longer, and it allows me to specify the exact angle now. So let's say I want an angle of, I don't know, 31 degrees. I press 31 and hit enter. And now I can see I've got a line, and I'll zoom out now. I'm going to zoom out so you can see it better. I've got the line there, and it's a length of 2 inches at an angle of 31 degrees. So again, what are we doing? We're creating a line, and we're specifically specifying its length and its angle. Its length and its angle. Now, sometimes the program will measure the angle with respect to the vertical axis. Take a look where I'm pointing here. Sometimes it'll measure the angle right here. And if that happens, you have to think mathematically about what number you would use. It would be the complement of this angle. So if this is 31, this angle would be 59 degrees. So it depends on the way you moved your mouse. Sometimes it uses the vertical axis to measure with respect to, and sometimes it uses the horizontal axis to measure with respect to. Joe, how you doing? Type in first, and then tab. Okay?
That's what I was doing.
So the problem is that you are really, really zoomed out right now. So you got to zoom in a whole lot. So you can scroll wheel.
Zooming in, zooming out.
So you went wrong.
Yes, you did.
You did use it way too far. Okay, now hover over the middle. So it looks like.
Not to start your schedule, scroll it, and ask them to find it.
So the short way to do it, Joe, you can click the scroll wheel and move it to the screen. That's good for now. Line on there, good. Hey, another shortcut. So there's a lot of keyboard, mouse shortcuts. Practice this. click the scroll wheel in. Click the scroll wheel in and move your screen. It's called panning. Panning is the word for that. That allows you to shift things left, right, up, and down. It allows you to move your view. So try it, please. Click on your scroll wheel and move your mouse around. You should see everything shift or slide. Yes?
The scroll wheel is super sensitive for the...
It is very sensitive. So one click zooms in and out a lot on the scroll wheel. So you don't need to scroll a lot or else you're going to lose your image. If you zoom in really far and you can't see anything, you just got to zoom back out and then re-zoom in on that area. Okay? So if you're noticing that you like lose your image on the screen, I'll do it on mine so you can see. Like watch. If I were to just zoom in at this point, it's gone. Like everything's gone because I'm zooming in the upper left quadrant. But if I zoom out a little bit now, I see everything comes back into play.
I totally lost mine and I just pressed the front again.
Yep.
And it just came
You can
back.
do that. You can choose front and it'll automatically find the front of the face. Yep. That's all right. So click your scroll wheel and this is what you should see happening right here. Okay, if you click and hold the scroll wheel, sorry, click and hold I should have said. Click and hold the scroll wheel as you move. Now, let's keep going with some 2D features for now. So we've got a line created on our image here. Right now, some of you might still be on the line feature. Hit escape on your keyboard if you are. Hit escape on the keyboard. Now let's take a look at the circle feature. If I hit the drop down for circle, well notice there are three types of elliptical shapes. One is a circle, the second is called a tangent circle, and the third is called simply an ellipse. First of all, what's an ellipse? So we know the phrase ellipse, Joe? It's like an oval, all right? It's like a circle that has two different diameters. One that's called a major axis and one that's called a minor axis. So take a circle and just make it flat, or take a circle and make it narrow. That's what an ellipse is. Careful with the word oval because it sounds almost like an oval. I think the shape is used for like an egg. But ellipses have symmetry. An egg shape is oval, is not symmetric actually. It's a different kind of shape. You know what I mean? One that is pointier than the other. So we are going to start with a center point circle, and when I hover over that, again, look what happens. I see the command. I see how to use this. But here's what I want you to do. Choose the circle option, but do not make a circle yet. Okay, so let's choose the circle option together, but don't make a circle. Just come over onto the page somewhere. Okay? Everybody here? We should have Jack. I know you have a lot going on. Let's get caught up to where we are. No, couldn't go back to it. I saw a solid sheet. So we've got a line on the page, and we're on the circle command right now. A line on the page, and we've got circle chosen as a command. Now, here's what's important. If you're stuck once you've clicked a command, look down here. This is what's called a command prompt. It's like old school computers when you would run Windows 95, you would get a command prompt in the beginning and type in what you were trying to open. Like open up this file, or open up this part. You don't see it anymore. This is called a command prompt. It tells you what to do next. So it says, select the center of the circle. Here's what I want you to do. Before you actually choose the center, hover over your line at the ends. Don't click, just hover over the line at the ends. What do you notice happens when you're at the end of the line? What do you notice you see? It goes green at the end of the lines because those are important parts. So this program is very intuitive. It senses when you're near the end of something or the middle. Try the middle. Go toward the middle of the line. It should turn green when you're right around the middle. That's the midpoint of the line. So it guarantees me that I'm at the midpoint if it turns green when I'm near it. And take a look at my screen. I'm getting close. I can barely see it because this computer is trying to record at the same time. Oh, there it is. Okay, see how mine turned green there? I'm on a bit of an incline. Sorry, guys. There we go. Okay, so there's the midpoint of my line. It will always turn green when you're on either an endpoint, a midpoint, an intersection of two lines. It'll turn green. Any important parts, look for it to turn green. Is that clear? If it's not green, and you think that you're starting your line at the end, and say you did this, take a look where I'm pointing. Say you clicked right here. Look where my finger is. Look if you click right there. If you click just off from the end, and you think you're making like a closed shape, for example, don't do this, but watch, please. So say I get this to become green, which works. Then I go over here, and then I go to close this to make a triangle. Let's say it wasn't at the end and I closed it like that. I can see that the triangle is not closed. And that's going to cause a lot of issues when we go to make solids. To make solids, you need what are called closed regions. So we'll talk about closed regions, but that whole idea of it being green, knowing that you're at the end point, is really important. So if I'm ever stuck, or if I'm ever at the point where, right now, for example, right now I'm waiting, and I don't like those last two lines I created, I can delete them, and I'll show you that tool in a minute, but you can also use the undo feature a lot. Control Z. If you press Control Z, it undoes the last thing you did. Okay, so I'm pressing Control Z, and by doing that, it literally gets rid of the last two things. Say again?
I was trying using Control Z and it was bugging out.
Oh, I don't know. I've never had a problem with that. I've used this for 4 years now. But yeah, you could use undo.
It was deleting lines and created after what I was trying to, or before.
Were you already in a solid?
Yeah.
That's why. I'll get to that when we get there. Hold off on that. Just maybe wait a little bit next time, okay? All right. So let's create that circle. By the way, we're gonna do the first two periods that I have you noticed, right? I'll let you go for the third for lunch, because it doesn't make sense to send you down there and bring up lunch, because you're not gonna be able to eat and do this at the same time. Yeah. So go to your circle feature. Please go to your circle feature. Go to the end point of your line. Click and release. Don't click and hold. And just move outward. You don't have to click again. Just move outward so that you're starting to make the circle. Again, what do we notice? We can either move outward and click and make it an arbitrary diameter, or what can we do, like we did last time? We can type in the direct dimension right into here. So I want to make this circle 1.5 inches. Okay, 1.5 inches in diameter. And right now, I know it's measuring the diameter because I literally see this, which is the diameter that's showing. There are other ways to use a radius instead of a diameter, and we'll see that when we get to arc features, arcs. So let's type in 1.5, please. Hit enter. So we should have a line that's 2 inches long and a 31-degree angle, and then a circle off the end of it that's 1.5 inches in diameter. So the center of your circle is the end of your line. Then press escape to get off of the circle feature, please. Okay, press escape to turn the circle feature off. Concerns, questions so far? Anybody not caught up to where we are? Anyone's look dramatically different? If your dimensions are different, it's not the end of the world right now. So if you made your line 5 inches long, or as Joe made it 69 inches long, that's fine. Either way, this is okay. So I'm messing with you. Whoever that was, Spencer that did it to Joe a minute ago. So what I want you to notice now, this part, is we're going to use some other features. So some of the other features, we have to have shapes already here. So the next one I want to talk about is called trim. Okay, let's take a look at this feature called trim. So look at where I'm hovering over it on mine. Look what trim does. And it's very obvious what trim does. Just look at the image. Trim does, it trims. Literally, trims part of it off. So trim is toward the top. It's at the top middle. And trim could be useful at some point in time. Let's say, for example, I didn't want the rest of this line to show up inside the circle. Take a look at what happens when I hover over it. When I hover over this piece of the line that's in the circle where it intersected the line created like a barrier. So when you use the trim feature, it will only trim on one side of the barrier. So go ahead and click the line that's inside the circle. See where I'm on right now, look at where I'm at. Hit trim, hover over it, it should turn dotted, and then click. And it should literally disappear. Because you're trimming off part of the circle. That did not work at all. Why is mine moving to the end? Oh, because I set a dimension. Hold on. So at times, all right, I'm getting ahead of myself, I guess, with trim. I have to talk about dimensions first. Yeah. So at times, if you set a dimension, you give a dimension for the length of this. The minute I go to trim this, it still wants the line to be 2 inches long because I set that earlier. So if I get rid of this dimension 2 here, let me show you how to do it. So go to this 2 first. Hit escape if you're on trim right now. Hit escape to get off of trim. Go to the number 2 right here. Okay, that dimension of 2. You can move it by clicking and dragging away to literally move the dimension so you can see it better. Right-click on the dimension. Right-click. Right-click. This is the middle finger here. Okay, right click on the dimension 2, and on the dimension, just hit delete. We want to get rid of this dimension here. Simply hit delete. Okay, that gets rid of that actual dimension that was given in the problem. Now, I could have also have changed the dimension. If I double clicked on it, it would have allowed me to change it. Like I can double click on the circle here on the dimension, and I could change this to 1.7 now. Or 1.7, and we'll see the circle get larger. So depending upon the dimension given, it can be changed by double clicking on that dimension itself. Will trim work now? Let's see. There we go. So take a look what happens now when you trim it, please. Go up to trim again. I'll show you on mine so you can see it better. Go up to the top and hit trim, and trim this little portion out of the circle, and it'll physically remove that part of the sketch. Notice right now that all the work we're doing is on the same plane, So I'm only still in sketch 1. Take a look at your computer, make sure that you only see sketch 1 over here on the left. If you see sketch 2 or 3 or 4, it means you hit start 2D sketch a couple times. You're going to see in a little bit that you can create 10, 20, 30 sketches for one image. Because every face that you're going to create will have a different sketch on it. So we're going to have multiple sketches along the way. But for now, we're going to have one sketch. You might say it's a bit sketchy. Oh, that was really bad. So now we want to also take a look at this tool at the top here, Dimension. And this Dimension tool does exactly what we were saying a little while ago. It allows us to alter the dimension of a shape. So if I choose Dimension now, everybody click Dimension, please. It should be highlighted at the top. And what I want to do is this. I want to set a dimension now for the length of this part of the line. Right? We trimmed off this piece, so I don't know what's left of this. I have no idea what that length is. So watch what I'm going to do, please. I'm going to use the Dimension tool. I'm going to hover on the line. I'm going to click it. I click and let go, and then I move away from the line. Now, the way I clicked it, it's letting me define a horizontal dimension. I don't want a horizontal dimension. I want the actual dimension. So let me click and drag away. Why is it only giving me the horizontal dimension? I'm going to click the endpoints of each part of the line. Take a look. I'm going to click this endpoint. Then I'm going to go over to here to click the other endpoint. And it's still giving me the vertical dimension. Why is that happening? All right. There are times where it's going to only allow you to do a certain thing. So like if I move over here, take a look what's happening. It's allowing me to define the vertical height. But if I move over here, it's allowing me to define the horizontal value. I did, yeah. It's not working for some reason. That's weird. That way, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's like stuck on the horizontal and vertical on mine. That happens at times, and I don't know why that is. They want you to solve and figure out the math yourself? Yeah. I mean, you can. Anyway, for now, let's define the length of this. Let's make it like 1.5. And when we do that, notice what happens. This is the point that was important. The dimension wasn't as important. What did you notice happened to my circle when I did that? It moved, right? Because what did we do earlier? We trimmed it. I agree with that, Joe. But before that, when we created the circle, how did we create the circle to start? Okay, correct. Before that. We set the endpoint of the line equal to the center of the circle. Remember earlier, what we did was we chose this center of the circle to be the endpoint of that line. So it was working as a function of the line's length. So the circle is still moving with respect to that. Now, because we trimmed off the piece that was in here, what's now happening is that the circle's outer edge is lining up with the endpoint of this line. The circle's outer perimeter, or the circumference, or the circle itself, has to line up with the endpoint of this new line because we trimmed it earlier.
Does it automatically anchor things?
Say again?
Does it automatically anchor things to each other?
It does, and that's called a driven dimension. So we're going to talk about dimensions and how things are functions of each other, and that will happen a lot with this. So for example, if I created another line, watch this, ready? So I'm going to create a line, and I'm going to arbitrarily, you don't have to do it, just watch. I'm going to arbitrarily make that line not parallel to the line I started with earlier. But if I look up here at the top, and I see all these features called constrain, all of these these allow me to constrain features. So I can make two lines have to be parallel to each other by choosing this parallel feature. So if I click this parallel feature here, and I choose the first one, then I choose the second one, I see that the second line automatically becomes parallel to the first one. So even if I were to try to move this line, like grab the end of this one and move it, look, notice I can't move it arbitrarily. Normally I could click the end of this and make it change the angle, but it's moving in such a way that it's always going to be parallel to this line. And again, why is that? That's because of the fact that I set what's called a parallel constraint. And there it is. See that little symbol right there? I can right-click that, and I can delete that constraint. Oh, oops. I can right-click that. Let me get on here. Mine's not responding as quickly, guys. Sorry. Okay? And I could, in this case, let me see if I delete the constraint only. Yeah, there we go. So I right-clicked on the constraint symbol. Now, because it's not set to be parallel to the other line, if I grab the end of this, look what happens. Now this line can change. I can change either end. I can pull one end up, one end down. But if the parallel constraint were set in place, this would not allow me to do it. So now if I grab the end of this line and try to move it, the entire line moves with it. I cannot move that other end arbitrarily because of this parallel constraint. So if I specifically choose the parallel constraint here and right-click on the constraint, not the line, and hit delete, it gets rid of that constraint. So that's what Spencer was asking about, of how to like set certain things in place. Let's see what else for today. I wanted to just try and get through some features. So circle is there. Now that was a center point circle. Here's what I'd like you to do next. Grab the line feature, please. Choose line and make a triangle. Does not matter what size. All I care is that the ends all match up. Okay, so make a triangle, please. Make sure that the triangle is closed. So when you go back to your starting point of the triangle, make sure it turns green before you click. Once you've made a triangle, please, go back to the circle feature and take a look at the second circle feature, look at its command. The second circle feature takes any three lines and creates a circle that in this case is inscribed inside of those three lines. So I chose a triangle. So by choosing this tangent circle feature, I can then take a look at what it says. It says select second line. So it already thinks I have the first line, which I don't. So let me go back and hit escape for a second because that's not right. So I want to choose the tangent feature. All right, here we go. Select first line. So start by selecting one of the triangle sides. Then it's going to say select second line. Go to the second triangle side. So I click one of them. I click the second one. And then I hover over the third. Look what happens. Before I even click it, it previews what it's going to become. And if I click the third line, look at the circle it just created. It created a circle that is tangent to all three sides of the triangle. Now, I could also have done that with three arbitrary lines. So if I just create a third line now on my page, take a look. Okay, if I just create those three lines there, and now I use the circle feature, I could start with one line, the second line, and the third line. And look, this new circle I just created is tangent to this line, it's tangent to this line, and it's tangent to this line. And how do I know it's tangent? Hover over and look at the actual symbol right there. This little symbol, it's hard to see it. Hold on. See that little symbol? I'm trying to hover over it right now so you guys can see it. That little symbol is showing up in all three spots. It's kind of hidden. That symbol is a tangency constraint. So when we talk about these constraints up here, we're talking about the ways we can constrain our shapes. This circle is constrained by these lines. So what do you think will happen if I move one of the lines? If I take this line and move it down, the circle will get bigger. It's got it, because the circle is constrained by these lines. So by clicking and holding here and moving, look what happens. Exactly what you expected. By moving this line closer, the circle has to get smaller, so it's still constrained by those three lines. By moving this one out, look what happens this time now. This is kind of weird, right? By taking this line and moving it, what does it do? It extends the two lines that I already had. Whether you realize it or not, if you extend this line, it'll become tangent. If you extend this line, it'll become tangent eventually to that one. It's hard to see it though, because it's not lined up. Okay, but that's what it would look like. This is just moving the circle so that it's always tangent to the line that's moving, which is this one, and these are always going to be actually parallel to one another.
What about moving the circle?
Can we?
Can you?
If I make the circle bigger, look what it does to the line. It moves the line. But in the end, it's still tangent to the lines. Okay? So that's the second type of circle here. The third type of circle is, as we saw, ellipse. And look at an ellipse. Ellipse is very simple. It starts with a center point, then you make the large axis, and then you make the other axis. So let's try ellipse together. So choose ellipse. And if I don't know what I'm doing, where do I look again? If I'm not sure what I'm doing, yep, I look down here, and it says select the ellipse center. Ellipse, right? Not eclipse, ellipse. So I select the center, I move in one direction, which is giving me one of my axes, and then I move in the other direction. And I see how the ellipse gets created as a result of that. Okay? So the distance from one end to the other is called my major axis. So from this end to the end over here, they're first, yeah, there it is, see? So they're giving me the major axis here of 1.941. I can change that to maybe like 2.5. And what's that going to change? It's just going to make my ellipse wider, right? Wider like that. Or longer, I guess you could call the word. It doesn't matter. And then I could also choose the dimension, and I could try to figure out the other dimension here. Oh, where is it? There it is, right there. And I can make this dimension, instead of 0.925, like 1.3, okay, which makes the ellipse a little bit wider there. So the dimension tool is really, really useful after I've already created an object and I want to resize it or rescale it. But it's important to recognize that, look, if there's already a number, you don't use the dimension tool. Just double-click the number. So try it yourself, please. On your ellipse you just created, double-click one of your dimensions. Double-click. It should allow you to alter that dimension now. So try to double-click on any of your dimensions. I got you, so. Now I can hit export first. It's okay. So now move over there. So that's the now what you can do is, what I'm trying to show you is, you can off a dimension, because you already have the dimension, you can double click the number itself. See the 2.5, yeah. And now you can add it directly. So once you give something a dimension, you're not going to give it another one, you're just going to be able to alter it. You try to give it another dimension, it's going to say, error. There already is a dimension. You're over-constraining this sheet. You can't give another dimension to it. And it'll literally give you an error message when you try that. So when you already define something's dimensions, in order to redimension or reshape or resize it, you're simply going to double-click any of these numbers. Literally, any number on the page you see right now, you can double-click and change. So I'm changing my circle's diameter to 2.5, and my circle just got larger. Okay? Are we good? Can I keep going? Okay, next one. Ready? Look up, look up. I'm going to skip arc for a minute. We'll get back to arc. I promise we will use it. But let's go to rectangle for today. Hit the drop down on rectangle, please. Hit the little drop down and take a look at all the options here. So first of all, you've got 4 different types of rectangles you can create. Depending upon the circumstance you're in, it will matter. So for now, if I knew where the corner points were going to be, I would choose the first option, called the 2-point rectangle. If I knew where the center was supposed to be, and then one of the corners, I would choose the third option, where I can define the center and one of the corners. If I knew where 3 of the corners were going to be, I could choose the second option, the 3-point rectangle with the corners. Finally, if I knew where the center was, 1 corner and 1 midpoint, which sounds weird, like why would I need that? But it does play a role. I would choose the 4th type. After that, these are called slots. Slots are really useful for mechanical engineering because a lot of things, like a piston or a crankshaft in an arm, move within a slot. So it's a very useful command. We're not going to use too much of it, but just so you know what it is. Okay, slots are like rectangles that are curved over, almost like an ellipse, but it's not an ellipse because the top and bottom are parallel. So imagine a rectangle whose corners are now rounded over. That's what a slot really is. The very bottom, though, is very useful. Polygon. You can make any polygon. So if you need anything beyond a rectangle, pentagon, hexagon, hectagon, octagon, all these different shapes. We can take them and we can create them, but they are regular polygons. Okay, so let's try first the 2-point rectangle. And notice if I forget what to do again. Select the first corner of the rectangle. Okay, so that's what I got to do. So let me select somewhere. Now, move away and select the opposite corner. Notice, I'm not clicking right away. I can define my dimensions again by typing directly in. So instead of clicking the second corner, again it says select the opposite corner, instead of clicking, type in the number and press tab again. So type in the dimension you want for the width of your rectangle. I'm going to choose 2.5 inches. And then I press tab on the keyboard. Then I'm going to make the height 1.15 inches. These are arbitrary numbers. Okay, and I hit enter. And now my rectangle is set. 2.5 by 1.15. Notice something happening here. Take a look at your rectangle. Notice what's happening to your rectangle. Look at these. Look at all these constraints. Did you do any of these? You didn't do any of them, right? Yet what do you notice? Look, there's one here that is a parallel constraint. Why is there a parallel constraint? Because it's a rectangle has two sets of parallel sides. So even though you didn't input this constraint, it's there. What about this one? What do you think this one is? Perpendicular, because it's a rectangle. It's perpendicular. The last one, I'm not sure what it is actually. What one is that?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's up there if you look at it. It's that one. See? I'll hover over it. Look, find it up top. You can see which one it is. It's this one up here I'm seeing. Thank you, Joe. That's it. Yep. Because the way I made this rectangle looks like it was horizontal to start. So if I tried to move this rectangle, take a look. If I try to physically move it, it's not moving left to right. It's constrained horizontally. It's literally not allowing you to move it left to right. But if I were to get rid of that horizontal constraint, oops, the constraint itself, not the whole line. Now I should, let's see. Oh, no, it must be on the upper one also. See if I can grab the corner to move it. This is interesting. Very interesting. If I start moving one corner, it's changing the angle which is moved.
Still, every time I try to delete one of those constraints,
It deletes the whole thing?
the line deletes.
So the first time you click on the constraint, the line is probably highlighted also. So click on it once more. Like single click on that constraint one more time. And when you right click on a constraint, it shouldn't show the whole menu, Chris. So look, what I'm saying here is like, if I click on the constraint properly, see how the whole thing shows up like this? If I see the whole thing appear, it's wrong. See what I mean? Click on it again on the constraint.
Oh, I got the. Did it allow you to?
No, it's not allowing you to move left to right.
It's weird how it moves too. It's like hanging from the corner that I took it from.
Look what mine is doing too. Because I turned off the parallel constraint. So it's allowing the top side to be no longer parallel to the bottom side as I move it. Here's the thing about CAD that's useful. Well, useful and a bit difficult at times. First, a lot of the stuff that you do based on the constraints you set, you have to know how to manipulate them. The good part about them is that usually when you create stuff and you then make a solid out of it, you're not going to have to change that shape after. So altering that shape would most likely not affect your problem. I'm trying to get through all these basic ones first today, so let's keep going through them. So let's say that I did this. Take rectangle, please, and choose this one for rectangle. Go to rectangle, please, and choose the rectangle that I'm hovering over. The one that's a 2-point center rectangle. The 2-point center is the third option down. Now, click on the 2-point center. There may come a time where the center of a circle needs to line up with the center of a rectangle, and that's when you might use this. So go over to one of your circles now and click to start at the center, and then you can move away from that. And it will build the rectangle outward from the center, and it'll lock those centers together. So then you can again type in your dimensions. Okay, you can type it, excuse me. You can type in your dimensions. I'm going to do 2.5, tab, and then 1.8. It does not matter. Okay, but again, I've set this up in such a way that now the center of the rectangle corresponds with the center of one of my circles. So that's the center of the circle and the center of the rectangle at the same time. At times you're going to want to create a point in space, and that's right here. It literally creates a point. By clicking on point, it allows the cursor to place a point anywhere you'd like. Look at all the points I'm clicking on now. They're all appearing as crosshairs on the screen. Why might I want these points? Here's why. It's possible that I want to have some sort of dimension with respect to that. So let me show you. So now when I choose dimension, look at all these points I created. See all these little crosshairs on my screen? Those are all points. It's very possible that I want an object to be a certain distance from that point. So I might start by saying, all right, first, let me see. I could choose this object here, the point, and then choose this corner, and I can set a distance between the point and the corner. And I could set this to be like 1.6. Now, because this object here was locked already, it shifted my point over a little bit, but it kept the gap between them as 1.6. So now, if I were to move this triangle, notice what happens when I make it larger or smaller. It always keeps the length between the vertex and the point as 1.6. Even if I make it larger, it keeps this as a steady 1.6. If I change it to like 2.2, it's going to shift the point over all the way over here now to make it a distance of 2.2. You might also want to create a random point at some spot. And maybe you want to create a point at the coordinate 5, 7. Or let's make it even further away on mine. Yeah, 5, 3. So I'm getting close. Take a look, please. I'm getting close to 5, 3. I'm almost there. Oh, I missed it. Right? I can't get exactly there. It's kind of tough. So I'm going to click arbitrarily first. Then I can choose dimension, and I can choose, if I zoom in enough, I can choose this point, and I can choose the origin. And then what I can do is, I can set this dimension, let me zoom out a little bit so you guys can see this better. I can set this dimension to be 5. And I have exactly the location of 5. And then I can go ahead and take the same dimension tool, click the point, click the origin, and I can set the height. And I can make the height exactly 3. So now, it sets this to be at a location of 5, 3. So there will come a time where you're going to want to specify an exact coordinate. And to do that, you can literally make an arbitrary point, but then you can dimension it with respect to the origin that you started at. Okay, so the point feature is very useful as well. I have not ever used text because it's very finicky, and we're not going to use text in this, so don't worry about it. Fillet and chamfer do exactly what they look like they do. Fillet takes a cornered edge and it rounds it over. Take a look, see what it does? It rounds over a cornered edge. Chamfer does what you see on your desk right now. Touch the corner of your desk. Right? That's chamfer. This is what chamfering is. Okay, when you take a corner that would normally be rigid and you make it so that it's angular on that corner. The chamfered corner or edge is what you're seeing on your lab tables right here. So chamfer and fillet could be useful. Try it if you want. You can try fillet. Click this side, click this side. And I can change the radius of curvature if I want. But look, already it started to curve in. But I can make this a little bit larger. So maybe I want to make it like 0.175. Hit enter. And I can see now my radius of curvature here. It's way off. Oh, it didn't change it somehow. You can double click and change this to... It won't work. Actually, try it. Try to make it a crazy number. It'll say dimension or build cannot be made because of limits. It'll give you an error. I'll try it on mine. Let's see. Let's try. So it took, yeah, that's a weird one. Here, I'll show that again. So that literally took this and made it so curved that it moved the whole thing to the other side. But like even one like, actually is working, which doesn't make sense. Hold on. What about one that's like -2? Okay, see? So it'll give you an error when it doesn't work. It'll always tell you right away. And when it gives you an error sometimes, it is useful to look at what that error means. it'll say like an error and there'll be like explanation of it. You can hit the plus sign and it'll give you an explanation as to why there's an error there. All right, fill it, text, point. All right, let's go to arc. Yeah, let's go. Let's go to copy. Copy does what you think it would. Okay, it copies a geometric sketch, and allows you to move it. So I could copy something. So first, it says select the geometry to copy. So I'm going to start with this circle right here. Then after that, I hate this thing. Hold on one sec, guys. Let me just do something. Okay, there we go. So I select the geometry to copy. Then I can choose what's called the base point. And the base point allows me to select where I want to copy it to. So when I choose that, it moves with respect to that base point here. So then I can create another image of that same circle at other locations along the way. And then I get it done, and I've got copies of that circle there. So copy could be a very useful feature. Rotate could be useful if you want to take an image that's a certain orientation and rotate it. I'm trying to actually go through the ones that are hard. So these ones under pattern are really useful. Take a look at the mirror pattern. And just look at what it does. It makes sense. It mirrors an image. It physically mirrors an image over another line. So to do that, let's go ahead and zoom out a little bit. Let's create some sort of a shape. I'm going to make what looks like half of a Christmas tree. Okay? I'm going to hit escape. Now what I'm going to do is, I don't know if these are all lined up or not, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a line right down the middle here. And I'm going to choose this option, mirror. And I can mirror this image, oops, escape, this image over that line. Now this line, if I don't really care about it, I don't want it to be there, I could also right-click it and make it what's called a construction line. And it'll just make it dotted, meaning it'll still be there as a barrier, but it won't actually be on your image. And I can still use that as my mirror line. We'll talk about construction lines later. So first it says, select the geometry to mirror. Now I don't want to just choose one of these. So if I click one of them, I can then keep clicking all of them like this.
How do you make the line?
Right-click it, and then a construction option should appear. See it? Next, I choose this option right here. It says mirror line. And when I click mirror line, it says select the mirror line. And I'm going to choose the construction line to mirror over. And then I'm going to hit apply. And we see the exact same shape on the other side. Now, what are you noticing about this? Because these lines or these endpoints were not all identical, I just kind of made it arbitrary, right? It doesn't mean that this gap is going to be the same for each one. See how narrow this gap is right here? And how wide this gap is? It's because these vertices were not all vertically aligned. Okay, so listen carefully. Don't just close your computer. Shut it down. So make sure you close this program. You do not need to save anything you've done today. So close the program at the top right. It's going to say you have to exit sketch mode first. Yeah, you don't have to save anything and stuff. Make sure the program closes properly. Then on the bottom left, hit the Windows button, hit the little power button, and hit shut down. Give it a minute to shut down before you close the lid button. Make sure that, like the keyboard, this all stuff turns off. Take your mouse sensor out of the USB port, put it back in your mouse, turn your mouse off, please. Please turn your mouse off because the battery just sits there and runs the whole time. Put the laptop back in. Do a favor, guys, don't use this area here. I'm going to put that piece of tape there. Put your laptop, stack them pretty high. If you logged in on a certain laptop today, try to remember which one it was. Look at the number on the top of the laptop. If you log in with the same one next class with your username, it'll log in real quick. It'll recognize you because you logged in once already. So try to use the same laptop. You're welcome to explore this program more on your own before our next class. Just come in during the free. All right, guys. You're welcome, guys.